The city was drowning in rain. Not the gentle kind, but the violent, needle-sharp downpour that blurred headlights and turned streets into mirrors. Midnight pressed against the windows of the Billionaire's convoy as it rolled through the deserted industrial district, an area they normally sped past without ever slowing. But tonight, something made the lead driver ease his foot off the gas. Ethan Cole looked up from his tablet, mildly irritated at the sudden deceleration. His convoy never slowed. Not for traffic lights, not for pedestrians, not even for accidents. Protocol was protocol. Why are we stopping? Ethan asked, his voice cool, polished, accustomed to obedience. The driver didn't answer at first. He just pointed through the windshield toward the right, toward the mouth of a dark, narrow alley the headlights barely reached. And there, standing in the rain, was the smallest silhouette Ethan had ever seen on a night like this. A little black girl. No older than 6. Barefoot. Shivering. Clothes pasted to her skin. Hair soaked into tight curls that clung to her forehead. She held something, someone, close to her chest. A baby. Wrapped in what looked like a torn, rain-soaked blanket. "Sir," the driver whispered, almost afraid of what he was seeing. She just walked out, carrying the infant. Security in the SUV behind them scrambled, headlights shifting as 3 men stepped out with umbrellas and hands on holsters. They moved toward the girl carefully, as if approaching a wounded animal. But she didn't run. She just stood there. Frozen. Trembling. Soaked to the bone. Ethan frowned, confusion prickling through the wall of emotional distance he kept so carefully built. This wasn't a scene he could ignore. Even he, the man known for overlooking anything that didn't touch his business empire, felt something twist inside. "Bring her closer," Ethan ordered. 2 guards approached gently. "Sweetheart. Can you hear me? Are you hurt?" She lifted her face. Rainwater streaked down her cheeks like tears she didn't have the strength to cry. Her lips were blue. Her eyes, huge, frightened, pleading, locked onto Ethan through the open car door. The closer she came, the tighter she clutched the tiny bundle in her arms. The baby didn't cry. Didn't move. That alone sent a jolt of fear through Ethan's chest. When she reached him, she stopped. Too exhausted to take another step. Too scared to collapse. Her small hand trembled as she reached forward, and gently gripped the sleeve of his expensive charcoal coat. Her voice came out as a brittle whisper, fragile, disappearing into the storm. "Mom. Mommy is, no more." Ethan's breath caught. She swallowed hard, lips trembling as she dragged in another shaky breath. "Please." Her eyes glistened with a desperation no child should ever feel. "Please save us." The billionaire, cold, unshakable, untouchable, stared at her in stunned disbelief. For the first time in years, he couldn't speak. And the girl's tiny hand remained wrapped around his sleeve, holding on as if he were the last safe thing left in the world. The rain hammered against the convoy like fists, but Ethan Cole didn't feel any of it. Not the cold air sneaking in through the open door, not the chill creeping across his suit, not even the stunned silence of his security team, all frozen as they watched him. He felt only one thing. The trembling hand of the tiny girl gripping his coat sleeve. Ethan Cole, worth $18.6 billion, owner of Cole Global Enterprises, feared by competitors and adored by investors, had no idea when he last touched another human being who needed him. Most people only touched him for one of 2 reasons, money or influence. And he never allowed either to get too close. He exhaled slowly, his polished composure cracking by a millimeter. "Sir," one guard asked hesitantly. "Should we intervene?" The girl whimpered softly as thunder rolled overhead. Her grip tightened. If they touched her, she looked like she might shatter. Ethan raised a hand, signaling the guard to stand down. He lowered himself to one knee, expensive slacks soaking instantly on the wet pavement. He looked at the girl, not the way a billionaire looks at a problem, or a nuisance, or a PR disaster, but the way a human looks at something unbearably fragile. "What's your name?" Ethan asked gently. "Amira," she whispered. "And the baby?" Her eyes flicked down to the bundle she held. "Naomi. She's cold." Her voice cracked, barely hanging on. Ethan couldn't explain the sharp twist he felt in his chest. A sensation he had long dismissed as impossible for him. Emotion. He stood and gestured sharply. "Get them inside. Now." His convoy surged into motion. Umbrellas unfolded. Doors opened. Security moved with purpose, but with care, now that Ethan himself had stepped into the storm. Inside the spacious back seat of the limousine, heaters blasted warm air. Amira crawled in hesitantly, her arms tightening protectively around Naomi. Ethan slid in after her, soaking wet but strangely unconcerned. The door shut, sealing away the storm, but the silence inside was louder. Naomi's breathing was shallow, barely audible under the hum of the engine. Ethan's jaw tightened. He pressed the intercom button. "Straight to the penthouse. Call Dr. Hanley. Prep the pediatric suite." "Yes, sir." The driver accelerated. The limousine sped through the empty streets, passing skyscrapers adorned with Ethan's name, Cole Tower, Cole Plaza, Cole Residences. He owned half the skyline, yet the world inside his car felt incredibly small. Amira stared at him, wide-eyed. A look mixed with fear and hope, as if she were deciding whether he was an angel, or another monster. "Are you mad at us?" she whispered. Ethan blinked. "Mad? No," he said quietly. "I'm not mad. That man earlier. He shouted when I asked for help." Ethan's breath stilled. "What man?" he asked. She didn't answer. Instead, she looked back down at the baby and rocked her gently. Ethan's throat tightened. He cleared his voice and turned away, staring out the window. Just focus on staying warm. But something twisted deep inside him again. Something old. Something he thought he buried decades ago. Because once, long before he became the man the world feared, Ethan Cole had been a 6-year-old child too. Barefoot. Cold. Abandoned. Begging someone, anyone, to save him. He blinked hard, driving away the memory. But the past didn't move. It sat there, heavy and undeniable. When they reached his penthouse, a fortress of glass and steel towering over the city, Ethan carried Naomi himself. She was almost weightless. Too weightless. Amira walked beside him silently, her tiny fingers gripping his coat now like a lifeline. He escorted them through the lobby past stunned staff, up private elevators, through biometric doors, and into his medical wing. Dr. Hanley rushed in. "Mr. Cole, what on earth?" "Help them," Ethan interrupted sharply, his voice breaking for the first time in years. "Both of them." The doctor paused, startled, not at the children, but at the expression on Ethan's face. A crack in the billionaire's armor. A glimpse of the man he used to be. As Naomi was gently lifted from his arms and placed on the examination bed, Ethan stood motionless, soaked in rain, chest tight, breathing uneven. He had just made a choice that would change everything. Not for his company. Not for his image. Not for power. But for two small girls who looked at him like he was the last safe human left in the world. And for the first time in a very long time, Ethan Cole hoped he was worthy of that look. He breaks routine to help the child. Ethan had seen emergencies before. In boardrooms. In stock markets. In hostile takeovers that threatened to burn down everything he built. He was a master of crisis control. But nothing, felt as urgent as watching Dr. Hanley peel back the soaked blanket from Naomi's tiny body. Severe hypothermia, the doctor murmured. She hasn't eaten properly in days. Amira stood on her toes, trying to see the baby. Her fingers twisted nervously in the hem of her wet dress. She didn't speak, but her eyes asked 1,000 questions Ethan wasn't ready for. The sterile beeping of monitors filled the room as Dr. Hanley worked quickly. Naomi's skin looked far too pale under the bright medical lights. Her chest rose and fell in fragile, uneven patterns. "Mr. Cole," Dr. Hanley said, "she needs warmth, fluids, and immediate stabilization. I'll call the pediatric unit to bring additional." "No," Ethan interrupted sharply. "No outside staff." He didn't know why he said it. Or maybe, he did. Something about the look in Amira's eyes, the fear that this too might be another place where she'd be ripped away from the only person who'd stop for her, made him act before logic could catch up. "Handle it internally," he ordered. "Use only our team. I don't want anyone else touching them." Dr. Hanley hesitated, then nodded. "Understood." Ethan exhaled, long and slow. He wasn't thinking like a CEO anymore. He wasn't thinking like a billionaire, or a strategist, or a public figure. He was thinking like a man who'd unexpectedly found 2 children drowning in a world too cruel for them. A moment later, Naomi let out a weak cry. Not loud, more like a soft, desperate gasp, a plea for warmth she couldn't form words for. The sound carved into Ethan's chest like a blade. Amira flinched at the cry and stumbled forward. Ethan caught her before she hit the floor. She weighed almost nothing. Lighter than she should. He crouched to meet her eyes. "She's okay," he said softly. He didn't know if it was fully true, but he said it anyway. Because she needed to hear it. "Are you sure?" Amira's voice trembled. "Yes." He held her little shoulders steady. "I'm making sure." Her lip quivered, and for a second Ethan thought she might collapse into him. But she stayed standing, small, soaked, shaking, but astonishingly strong. There was something in her eyes that struck him hard. This child had been alone far too long. And she didn't trust the world enough to fall apart. A guard burst into the medical suite. "Sir, we need a statement. Police are asking questions. They said you removed minors from an unknown location." Ethan didn't even turn. He spoke quietly, dangerously. "If they want answers, they can speak with my legal team." "But sir." "I don't have time for protocol," Ethan snapped. "Handle it. I'm staying here." The guard nodded and backed out. Amira tugged gently at Ethan's sleeve again. The same motion that had stopped him in the alley. She whispered, "Are we going to be taken away?" Ethan froze. The question sliced through him. Because he knew, that was exactly what the world would try to do. "No," he said firmly. "Not a promise. A declaration. I'm not letting anyone take you." Amira stared at him, searching his face in a way that made him feel exposed, like she could see the truth of him better than most adults. And then, slowly, she nodded. Not because she fully believed him, but because she wanted to. As Naomi's breathing steadied and warmth returned to her tiny fingers, Dr. Hanley gave a small nod. "They'll both live," he said quietly. "Thanks to your intervention, Mr. Cole." Ethan looked at the girls, one barely standing, one barely fighting, and felt something shift inside his chest. "No," he murmured. "Thanks to them. In saving them." Something inside him was waking that he thought had died years ago. The storm outside had calmed into a distant rumble, but inside Ethan Cole's penthouse medical wing, the tension felt like thunder still lived in the walls. Naomi lay under a heated blanket, her breathing gently evening out, her frail body absorbing warmth with desperate hunger. Machines hummed softly, steady beeps, slow drips, quiet whirs, each sound a fragile reminder that the baby was still fighting. But Ethan's mind kept drifting back. To where the girls had come from. To the place where everything had gone terribly wrong. He needed answers. "Where do you live, Amira?" Ethan asked gently. The little girl hesitated. Then she pointed toward the window, toward a cluster of rundown buildings far beyond the glowing skyline. "A big gray building, with the broken door," she murmured. Ethan's jaw tightened. He stood, signaled his head of security, and spoke quietly, "Prepare the car. We're going to the location." Discreetly. "Sir, the police." "I'm not asking," Ethan cut in. "Move." Minutes later, Ethan's Special Operations SUV slid through the back entrance of the building, tires hissing on rain-soaked pavement. Amira stayed behind with Dr. Hanley, clutching a plush blanket the staff brought her, eyes wide and frightened but calmer now that Naomi was stable. Ethan, flanked by 2 trusted guards, stepped into the alley where the girl had emerged only an hour earlier. The storm had washed away footprints, but not the feeling of abandonment that clung to the shadows like old paint. He entered the building. And the sensory assault was immediate. The hallway smelled of mildew and stale cigarettes. Water leaked from pipes overhead, dripping rhythmically into rusted buckets. The walls, once white, were stained with brown streaks, years of neglect layered on top of each other like sediment. A flickering fluorescent light buzzed overhead, making the corridor shiver in uneven pulses of light. "This way," one of the guards said, checking the address scribbled on a crumpled utility bill Amira had carried in her pocket. They reached a door, apartment 3C, hanging crooked on a single hinge. The bottom was splintered, likely kicked in. Ethan pushed it open carefully. The smell hit him first. A cold, metallic odor mixed with damp carpet, old food, and the unmistakable heaviness of death. He stepped inside. The apartment felt hollow. Not empty, just hollow, like life had drained out long before death actually arrived. The single living space was dimly lit by the weak glow of a street lamp outside. Rainwater pooled on the floor under a cracked window. A thin mattress lay in the corner, scattered with thin blankets and a small pillow stained with tears. Children's drawings filled one wall, scribbled with crayons in shaky little hands. Smiling stick figures labeled Mommy, Me, and Baby. Bright sun. Flowers. Hope. But everything else in the room told a different story. A fridge door hanging open revealed only 2 things inside, half a bottle of water and a jar with an inch of sugar at the bottom. Ethan's stomach clenched. Amira had been trying to keep her sister alive with sugar water. The baby's crib was nothing more than a laundry basket lined with old shirts. And then he saw her. The mother. Slumped inside the bedroom doorway, back against the wall, had fallen to one side. A faint smile frozen on her face, as if she had been comforting her children with her last breath. A plastic pill bottle lay spilled beside her. The label was smudged. The cap broken. Ethan's heart dropped like a stone. He crouched beside her, not touching, just observing. The room was silent except for the faint rain tapping the window and the soft hum of distant traffic. "She was young," one guard said quietly. "Too young," Ethan replied. On the nightstand, he noticed something else, a half-written letter. The paper was creased, damp, the edges curling. He picked it up. It read, "If anyone finds this, please take care of Amira and Naomi. I tried. I truly did." The rest was smeared beyond recognition. Ethan closed his eyes. A slow, quiet breath left him. This wasn't just poverty. This wasn't just tragedy. This was abandonment by a world that should have helped her, and didn't. He stood slowly, the letter trembling in his hand. "We're taking everything," he ordered. "Every document. Every item. Every detail. This isn't over." As he left the apartment, rain dripping from the broken ceiling onto the fragile drawings taped to the wall, Ethan felt something settle inside him. Something heavy. Something righteous. This wasn't charity. This wasn't obligation. This wasn't even rescue anymore. This was war against whatever had failed these girls. And it had just become personal. The elevator doors slid open with a soft chime as Ethan stepped back into the medical wing. He carried the mother's half-written letter in his hand, the edges still damp from the apartment. His jaw was tight, his steps heavy, but his eyes were sharp, burning with a resolve he hadn't felt in decades. Amira sat curled on a long couch under a heated blanket. Her knees were drawn up to her chest, tiny toes peeking out. A cup of warm milk rested untouched beside her, steam drifting faintly upward. She glanced up when Ethan entered. Not with fear. Not with hope. With caution. The kind of caution a child learns only after the world teaches her never to fully trust adults. Ethan's heart tugged at that look in a way he never expected. "You're back," she whispered, voice small but relieved, like she'd spent every minute fearing he wouldn't return. "I said I wouldn't be long," Ethan replied gently. He sat down a few feet away from her, close enough to offer comfort, far enough to give her space. She noticed the letter in his hand. "Is that Mommy's?" she asked, her eyes moving to the damp page. Ethan hesitated. "Yes. Can I see it?" He paused. She was 6. What good would it do? What pain would it bring? But then he remembered the apartment, the hollow silence, the drawings on the wall. She had lost everything. She had the right to the last piece of her mother. He handed it to her carefully. Amira held it with trembling hands, tracing the smeared words with her thumbs as if she could squeeze the memories back into the page. "She always wrote us letters when she was sad," she murmured, voice soft as a breath. She said, writing made her feel less alone. Ethan swallowed, the lump in his throat unexpected and unwelcome. "What about you?" he asked quietly. "When you're sad, what makes you feel less alone?" Amira shrugged, her lower lip wobbling. I don't know. I just hold Naomi and pretend Mommy's still with us." Her voice cracked, but she didn't cry. She didn't let herself cry. That alone broke Ethan more than tears could. He shifted slightly closer and picked up the warm milk, holding it out to her. "Try to drink a little," he said. "You need it." Amira accepted the cup with both hands, sipping timidly. She winced, the heat surprised her, but she kept sipping. After a moment, she whispered, "Mr. Ethan?" "Yes." "Why did you stop for us?" Silence settled deeper in the room. Ethan could have answered with logic. Protocol. Instinct. Timing. Professional obligation. But none of those were true. He looked at the small girl wrapped in a blanket too big for her, holding a cup with both tiny hands, sitting in a billionaire's private medical suite like an injured sparrow in the wrong world. And he answered honestly. "Because you asked." Amira blinked. She clearly hadn't expected that. "Most grown-ups don't hear me," she murmured. "Even when I talk." Ethan's chest tightened. "I heard you," he said. "But, why?" Ethan leaned forward, elbows on his knees, hands clasped. His voice came out low, rougher than usual. "When I was your age," he said slowly, "I asked for help too. And no one came." Amira stared at him, eyes widening. And for the first time, there was no caution in her gaze. Only understanding. Only connection. "Were you scared?" she asked softly. He exhaled. "Yes." "Did you have a baby to take care of?" "No." Then, she hesitated, "Why didn't they help you?" Ethan didn't have an answer. He'd asked himself that question 1,000 times. Tonight, the answer felt clearer than it ever had. Maybe, he said quietly, they were too busy thinking about themselves. Amira's shoulders sank. That's what happened to Mommy. The truth hit Ethan like a punch. A beat of silence passed. Then Amira shifted slightly, and scooted closer. Not much, just enough that her small shoulder brushed his sleeve. She leaned her head gently against his arm. It was the first time she reached for him willingly. Ethan stared ahead, still as stone, but inside something cracked open, something he thought had calcified years ago. "Mr. Ethan," she whispered without lifting her head. "Yes. Are we safe with you?" He looked down at her, this fragile child who had carried her baby sister through freezing rain, who had faced the world alone, who still hadn't let herself truly fall apart. "Yes," Ethan said softly, firmly, as if daring the world to challenge him. "You're safe." She closed her eyes. And for the first time since he met her, Amira allowed herself to breathe. The hours passed quietly, too quietly. Naomi slept under the soft hum of heating pads. Amira drifted off against Ethan's arm, finally surrendering to exhaustion. But peace never lasts long when the world is watching. Especially when a billionaire breaks the rules. The first disruption came as a tremor through the penthouse walls, a faint vibration that made Ethan lift his head. Security radios crackled. "Sir," the head of security said over the intercom, voice tight, "we have incoming." Ethan lowered Amira gently onto the couch and stood. "Define incoming." "Police. CPS. And at least 8 reporters trying to breach the lobby." Amira stirred at the noise. Her small hand reached out automatically, instinctively, searching for him. Ethan returned to her side instantly. "You're okay," he whispered. "It's just noise." But his own pulse had quickened. He pressed the intercom. "Seal every floor. No one enters without my authorization." "Yes, sir," the guard replied. "But CPS is threatening a warrant." Ethan's jaw flexed. Of course they were. Because in their eyes, he wasn't a rescuer, he was a lone billionaire harboring 2 vulnerable minors with no paperwork, no custody rights, no legal authority. "Let them try," Ethan growled. 20 minutes later, raised voices echoed down the main hallway. Ethan rose as Dr. Hanley hurried in. "They won't wait much longer," the doctor warned. "They're demanding access. They say the children must be transferred to state care." A cold wave swept through Ethan. "Absolutely not." "Ethan," the doctor said gently, "they have protocols. Procedures. They're not your enemies. They will be if they try to take those girls." Hanley hesitated. "You're putting yourself in a difficult position." Ethan turned slowly toward him. "I don't care." The doors to the medical wing slid open and 2 CPS workers stepped inside, followed by 4 uniformed officers. Amira shot upright with a gasp. "No. No, please," she whispered, scrambling backward until her small back hit the couch cushions. Ethan immediately stepped between her and the officials. "Stop right there," he warned. The lead CPS worker, a woman in her 40s with a clipboard and stiff posture, announced. "Mr. Cole, you have taken 2 minors from a private residence without notifying the proper authorities. This constitutes illegal custody. We are here to take them into protective care." Ethan laughed once. A sharp, humorless sound. "Protective care," he repeated. "I found them in the rain. 1 unconscious. 1 starving. Their mother deceased. And you want to lecture me about who protected them?" "The law is the law," the woman replied coolly. "And compassion is compassion," Ethan countered. "Do you have a medical team ready at 2 in the morning? Do you have pediatric gear? Monitors? Heating pads? Formula? No. You have a clipboard." The officers shifted uncomfortably. The CPS worker stiffened. You're obstructing our mandate. And you're endangering a baby who almost froze to death tonight, Ethan said, voice low, dangerous. Touch them, and you'll answer for it. Amira pressed herself behind him more tightly, shaking. One officer stepped forward. Mr. Cole, no one wants a conflict. We can discuss this reasonably. Ethan turned toward him with an icy gaze. Do I seem unreasonable? The officer swallowed hard. Sir, you can't keep them. Ethan's voice dropped to a near whisper. The kind that made entire corporations tremble. Watch me. Then Amira's voice cracked through the tension. Please, don't let them take us. A silence fell so heavy it suffocated the room. Ethan turned, seeing her tiny hands clutching the couch, her breathing quick, eyes wide with terror. He faced the CPS workers again. You see that? Ethan said. That is a child who has seen more fear than any adult in this room. And you want to drag her back into the system that failed her mother? The CPS worker faltered. Mr. Cole, No, Ethan cut in. You lost the right to speak when she begged for safety. Dr. Hanley cleared his throat quietly. If I may, medically speaking, removing them now could trigger acute distress. Both children need stability for the next 24 hours minimum. Her cortisol levels are already dangerously high. The CPS worker hesitated. Then, reluctantly, backed down half a step. The police officer nodded slowly. We'll note the doctor's recommendation. But this isn't over. Ethan stepped forward, making eye contact with each of them. It's over for tonight. That's all that matters. They left reluctantly, muttering about warrants, paperwork, and legal consequences. The doors clicked shut. Silence. Then a soft sound, like a breath catching. Amira launched forward and wrapped her small arms around Ethan's waist. Not cautiously. Not timidly. Desperately. He froze for a heartbeat. Then slowly placed a hand on her back. You're safe, he murmured. I won't let them take you. Her tiny fingers tightened in the fabric of his shirt. And Ethan Cole realized something with absolute clarity. He hadn't just saved them. He had chosen them. And now the world, police, CPS, the law, would have to go through him first. Night bled slowly into early dawn, painting faint streaks of blue across the panoramic windows of the penthouse. The storm had faded to a distant murmur, but inside, tension still clung to the air like smoke. Ethan sat on the sofa in the medical wing, still in the same damp clothes from the night before. He couldn't bring himself to leave, not even for a moment. Amira sat beside him, wrapped in a thick blanket, Naomi resting in a warmed bassinet nearby. For the first time since the ordeal began, the atmosphere was calm enough for the deeper truth to surface. Amira picked at the edge of the blanket, her small fingers trembling. Her eyes weren't on Ethan, nor on Naomi, they were fixed on the floor, on something only she could see. Ethan watched her quietly. He had seen fear. He had seen hunger. He had seen the exhaustion that comes from carrying responsibilities no child should ever know. But this, the fragile silence forming around her, was something different. Amira, he said softly, you're safe now. You can rest. She shook her head. If I sleep, maybe someone will take Naomi when I'm not looking. Ethan felt something twist in his chest. No one is taking her, he assured her gently. Not tonight. Not tomorrow. Her small fingers stilled. Then curled into fists. After a long moment, she whispered, do you want to know what happened to Mommy? Ethan's breath hitched. This was the moment he'd been waiting for, and dreading. Yes, he said quietly. But only if you're ready. Amira nodded slowly, her voice barely audible. I woke up. And she wasn't moving. The sentence landed heavy, like a stone hitting still water. Amira swallowed hard, fighting tears she refused to release. She stopped breathing the night before, she continued. She said she felt dizzy. She said she'd get better if she rested. She told me to watch Naomi and keep her warm. Ethan listened, jaw clenched, breath tight. I tried, Amira whispered. I really tried. I put Naomi under the blanket. I gave her sugar water because there was nothing left. Mommy told me to, she said it would help for a little while. Her voice cracked, raw and thin. Ethan forced himself to remain steady. She needed stability, not pity, but every word scraped at wounds he'd long buried. Why didn't you call for help? He asked gently. Why didn't someone come? I did try, she said, a tremble in her voice. I knocked on doors. I asked the man downstairs. He yelled at me and slammed the door. He said he wasn't a babysitter. Ethan closed his eyes briefly. And when I went to the store, she went on, the lady told me I shouldn't be out alone and said she'd call the police, but she didn't. Her fingers gripped the blanket so tight her knuckles went white. So I went back home. I kept trying to wake Mommy. I shook her. I hugged her. I kept telling her Naomi was hungry. A tear finally broke free, sliding silently down her cheek. But Mommy, she didn't open her eyes. Ethan felt cold. Numb. Furious. And then the storm came, Amira whispered. The roof started leaking. The room got cold. Naomi wouldn't stop shaking. I didn't know what to do. She sniffed and wiped her face with the back of her small hand. So I took Naomi and left. I thought maybe someone nice would help us. Her voice cracked. I didn't think it would take so long. Ethan leaned closer, his voice low and steady. You did everything you could. Everything. Amira's lips trembled. But Mommy still died. Because she was failed, Ethan said firmly. Not by you. By the people who should have helped her. Amira hesitated. Then she finally let herself lean against him again, small, breakable, but unbelievably strong. Ethan placed a gentle hand on her back. You're not alone anymore, he said softly. You hear me? She nodded, pressing her cheek into his side as quiet tears dampened his shirt. I'll take care of you both, he whispered. I promise. And in that moment, Ethan knew. This wasn't sympathy. This wasn't obligation. This wasn't temporary. He was committed. Whatever the world threw at him next. Amira and Naomi were his responsibility now. And nothing, would make him abandon them. The sun had begun to rise, casting pale gold across the towering glass windows of Ethan's penthouse. But despite the warm light creeping into the room, Ethan felt wrapped in a cold that had nothing to do with the weather. Amira had finally fallen asleep, curled up beneath a blanket on the couch, her breathing soft and even for the first time since he found her. Naomi slept peacefully in the bassinet. The medical machines emitted gentle sounds, beeps, hums, that echoed through the vast quiet. Ethan sat beside them both, elbows on his knees, hands clasped tightly. Her story. It had peeled open something inside him he spent years burying. Because as she spoke about knocking on doors, about adults ignoring her, about holding her baby sister while the world looked away, images he had tried to forget resurfaced with brutal clarity. His childhood. His beginning. His pain. He remembered waking up on a cold floor when he was 7. Not to a storm. Not to a collapsed mother. But to silence. A silence so thick it felt like the world had stopped breathing. He remembered calling out, once, twice, 3 times, his small voice echoing in their shabby apartment. His father, slumped in a chair with an empty bottle dangling from his fingers, didn't respond. Didn't move. Didn't breathe. Just like Amira's mother. Ethan had shaken him. Pulled his sleeve. Begged him to wake up. Nothing. He remembered tears burning down his face, but no one came. Not neighbors. Not friends, they didn't have any. Not relatives, he didn't know any. The adult world that should have surrounded him simply wasn't there. He'd walked into the hallway barefoot, knocking on doors, just like Amira. The first door didn't open. The second opened halfway, only for the woman inside to shout. "Go home. I'm not dealing with your drunk father again." He had stumbled backward, heart pounding, shame crushing him. He remembered waiting all night beside his father's body until morning came and the landlord found them. What happened after was a blur. Social workers. Police cars. Cold offices. 2 bright lights. Forms. Foster homes. Disappointment. Hunger. Fear. But the one moment that stuck with him was the moment he reached for someone's hand, and they pulled away. As if his pain was contagious. As if he didn't deserve comfort. The memory suffocated him as he sat there, staring at the 2 little girls who mirrored his past so painfully. He stood suddenly, pacing to the window, running a hand through his hair. His reflection stared back at him, older, richer, stronger. But still carrying the ghost of the child he used to be. He had built entire empires to outrun that ghost. He'd buried his heart in work. He'd convinced himself he didn't need anyone, didn't need softness, connection, family. But last night, in that alley, a 6-year-old child whispered the exact words he once wished someone had said to him. "Please save us." And he couldn't walk away. Not again. Not like the world walked away from him. He returned to the couch. Amira's hand, still curled from sleep, twitched gently. She murmured something, "Mommy," and leaned closer to his side even in unconsciousness. Ethan sat down slowly. Watched her. Listened to Naomi's soft breaths. He felt that same deep ache in his chest, the ache he had numbed for decades, swelling and breaking through his walls like rising water. He whispered, almost to himself. "No child should feel what I felt." He swallowed hard. No child should beg the world to listen. His hand hovered for a moment, then he placed it gently on Amira's small shoulder. She relaxed instantly, breathing deeper, sinking into the comfort she'd been denied for too long. Ethan inhaled shakily. This wasn't pity. This wasn't charity. This wasn't guilt. It was recognition. He saw himself in her. He saw his past in her fear. He saw his father's neglect in the system that had failed her mother. It wasn't just that he couldn't let them go. It was that he wouldn't. Because saving them wasn't just saving 2 children. It was saving the little boy he used to be. And for the first time in years, Ethan realized he no longer felt empty. He felt something fierce. Something protective. Something irrevocably alive. He wasn't just going to help them. He was going to fight for them. No matter what came next. Morning light had barely touched the skyline when Ethan's world began to fracture. It started with a vibration on the marble table, his phone. Then another. And another. Notifications exploded across the screen like warning sirens. Breaking, billionaire Ethan Cole seen carrying child in alleyway. Is Ethan Cole hiding unidentified minors? Exclusive footage, mystery children inside Cole Tower. Hashtag Who Are the Cole Kids trending #1. A shaky cell phone video, captured by someone across the street while his convoy had stopped, was now everywhere. The footage showed everything. Ethan kneeling in the rain. Amira clutching him. Naomi limp in his arms. His face. Raw, unguarded, vulnerable. A moment meant to be private, now weaponized by the world. His head of security stormed into the room. "Sir, it's chaos downstairs. Reporters have doubled. Social media is exploding. Protesters are gathering outside, some defending you, some accusing you. We have influencers claiming you're buying children or kidnapping runaways." Ethan clenched his jaw. The last thing Amira and Naomi needed was a circus. "What about the board?" he asked. The guard swallowed. "They've called an emergency meeting." Of course they had. Billions were at stake when Ethan Cole's reputation trembled. He turned back toward the medical wing. Amira was awake now, rubbing her eyes with small balled fists. When she saw his expression, tight, controlled, tense, she instinctively shrank. Did we do something wrong?" she whispered. Ethan instantly knelt in front of her. "No. You did nothing wrong. People are just loud when they don't understand something." "But they're mad?" she asked. "They're confused," he corrected. "They don't know the truth." Her lips trembled. "Will they take us?" The fear in her voice punched through him like a blade. "No," Ethan said, low and firm. "I'm not letting that happen." But he knew the truth. People with power didn't need to take the children physically. They only needed one public narrative to turn the world against him. And he didn't trust the world, not after what he'd seen. Dar. Hanley entered the room, holding a tablet. "Mr. Cole. I think you should see this." He tapped a video. A morning news anchor read from a teleprompter. "Sources report that billionaire Ethan Cole is harboring 2 minors without notifying law enforcement. Authorities are investigating potential foul play. Some speculate he may have removed the children from a crime scene. Others question whether the children belong to him." Ethan stood straighter. "The children are not objects to be speculated about." Dr. Hanley nodded sympathetically. "The media doesn't care, Ethan. They want a story. And they'll get one," Ethan snapped, "when I'm ready." He stepped onto his balcony, overlooking the chaos below. Police lights flashed. Cameras pointed upward like hungry eyes. People shouted his name, some chanting support, others condemnation. "Let him explain. Where are the girls? Protect those children. Arrest him." A protest sign read. "Rich men don't get to hide things." Another. "Save the sisters." And a third. "Who is the opponent? What is he hiding?" Ethan exhaled slowly. It didn't matter how kind his intentions were. To the public, he was a billionaire with secrets. And today, he'd given them something to obsess over. His phone buzzed again. Incoming call, Board of Directors. He ignored it. Another buzz. Legal team, urgent. Ignored. Another. Corporate communications, we need a statement now. Still ignored. Ethan turned and looked back inside, toward the 2 sleeping children, toward Amira's tiny frame curled against a pillow far too big for her. He had spent his whole life building a fortress of wealth, power, and control. And now, that fortress was under siege. Not because he'd broken a law. Not because he'd done something wrong. But because he'd done something right. He glanced toward the medical monitors, then the door, then the windows still surrounded by reporters. He whispered under his breath. "Let them talk. I'll deal with them." Then he added, quieter. "But they will not touch these girls." And the world outside, noisy, chaotic, judgmental, kept screaming as Ethan made the silent decision that would change everything. He would protect Amira and Naomi at any cost. Even if the whole world turned against him for it. The chaos outside didn't fade. If anything, it grew louder, news vans stacking along the curb, drones buzzing above the building, flashing lights painting the penthouse glass in frantic red and blue. But inside Ethan's private medical wing, everything stood impossibly still. Naomi slept soundly. Amira drew circles on the edge of her blanket with her fingertip. Ethan stood at the window, jaw set, mind spinning. There was pressure from every direction: authorities, media, shareholders. But something deeper was gnawing at him, sharper than the noise, heavier than the rumors. Something wasn't right. He felt it. Not about the children. About the circumstances. A mother collapsing from exhaustion in a rundown apartment. Possible. No food in the fridge. Tragically common. 2 little girls living alone for days. Heartbreaking but believable. But then his memory snagged on the image from the apartment. The mother's pill bottle. The label half torn. The cap broken, not unscrewed. The pills spilled in a pattern that looked wrong. His instincts, the same instincts that made him a billionaire, whispered. It wasn't natural. It wasn't random. Look deeper. He walked over to where he'd placed the items retrieved from the apartment, a small evidence box on the counter. Inside were the half-written letter, the cracked pill bottle, a broken phone, a worn-out wallet, a folded paper with numbers, a child's crayon drawing. Ethan picked up the drawing first. It showed 3 stick figures. Me, Naomi, and Mommy. But something else was drawn off to the side. A tall stick figure with no face. Wearing a long coat. A large X over the figure's head. Ethan frowned. He turned to Amira, who watched him quietly. Amira, he said softly, who is this person? He tapped the faceless figure. She hesitated, her shoulders rose, and her eyes darted to the door, as if afraid the mere mention of him might make him appear. That's the man Mommy didn't like. Ethan felt a prickle crawl up his spine. What man? The one who kept asking about us, she whispered. Mommy said he was dangerous. She said if he ever came back, we had to hide. Ethan crouched to meet her eyes, voice steady. Did he ever come back? Amira nodded. Last week, he came to the door. Mommy told me to stay quiet. She said if he found us, he'd take Naomi. Ethan's blood turned cold. And what did he look like? He asked. She thought for a moment, then said. He had a jacket, with a picture on it. A picture? She pointed to the folded paper in the evidence box. That one. Ethan grabbed the page and unfolded it. It wasn't a picture. It was a logo. A sharp, angular symbol, black and red, with a triangular shape wrapped around a circle. A symbol Ethan recognized. His heartbeat faltered. This wasn't a gang mark. Not a neighborhood tag. Not a random drawing. It was the logo of Echelon Industries, a corporation infamous for legal trouble, black budget projects, and human trafficking allegations that mysteriously vanished every time they surfaced. A corporation whose CEO had openly feuded with Ethan for years. A corporation run by Marcus Trenholm. A man powerful enough to bury anything he didn't want the world to know. Ethan stared at the symbol, breath stuck in his chest. This wasn't a coincidence. This wasn't random. This wasn't fate. This was deliberate. He closed the paper slowly. Then he whispered to himself. Someone was looking for these girls. And whatever they wanted. It wasn't rescue. It wasn't charity. It wasn't kindness. It was something far darker. And now that Ethan had the girls, that darkness was coming for him. Ethan stared at the Echelon Industries symbol as if it were a ghost from his past. Marcus Trenholm. A man as powerful as he was corrupt. A man who never lost a fight, because he never played fair. A man who once told Ethan, with a smug smile over a boardroom table. You don't beat me in this city. You survive me. And now his symbol was drawn by a 6-year-old girl hiding from him. This was not coincidence. This was a message. A threat. A warning. Ethan didn't wait. He snapped open his phone and dialed a number he rarely used. The line rang once. Twice. "Mr. Cole," came a voice, a woman's, sharp, disciplined, dangerous. "To what do I owe the honor?" "Shayla," Ethan said, "I need you. Now." Shayla Monroe wasn't just a private investigator. She was the kind of PI people whispered about, the one who found the things no one else could, because she wasn't afraid to go where others wouldn't. "I'm on my way," she responded without question. Ethan hung up. It took her 18 minutes to reach the penthouse. She strode into the room, hair tied back, dark trench coat dripping from the morning rain. She took in Amira sleeping, Naomi in the bassinet, and Ethan's rigid posture. "Tell me everything," she said. He handed her the symbol. She stared at it for half a second. Her expression hardened. "Echelon." "Exactly." Shayla's jaw tightened. "What does a child have to do with them?" "That's what we're going to find out," Ethan replied. He motioned for her to follow him out into the private conference room. She spread the contents of the evidence box across the polished table like puzzle pieces in a crime drama. Shayla picked up the pill bottle. "Cap is broken," she muttered. "Not twisted open." "Meaning?" "Meaning someone forced it," she said. "Either she panicked and broke it, or someone else was there." Ethan folded his arms. "She died 2 days ago. The girls were alone since then. No forced entry marks on the door." Shayla glanced up. "Unless the person she feared had a key." Ethan exhaled, pacing. "This doesn't feel like a random tragedy." "It isn't," Shayla said simply. She tapped the broken phone on the table. "This is next." Ethan nodded toward his head of security. "Get it to cyber forensics. Full extraction. Call me the second anything appears." "Yes, sir." Shayla then lifted the half-written letter. She was writing this when she died. Ethan nodded grimly. Or when she was interrupted. Shayla's eyes sharpened. Interrupted by who? She didn't ask it like a real question. She asked it like she already knew the answer, and only needed evidence to confirm it. Trenholm. Ethan pressed his palms on the table, grounding himself. "Shayla. I saw her apartment. The bruises. The fear. She wasn't just struggling. She was hiding." Shayla gave a slow, grim nod. "I'll start with the neighbor testimonies. No one in a building like that keeps secrets well." Ethan pulled the child's drawing closer. The faceless man with a big X over his head. "Look at this," he murmured. Shayla studied it, eyebrows knitting together. "Kids don't draw symbols of corporations unless they see them." She didn't draw a logo, she drew a uniform. Someone with that mark was physically present. "And looking for them," Ethan said. "If they were looking for the girls," Shayla said slowly, "there's something the mother knew. Something valuable enough to hunt her down." Ethan stepped closer to the bassinet, watching Naomi's small chest rise and fall. What could a single mother possibly have that a corporation like Echelon wants? Shayla didn't hesitate. "Evidence." Ethan's pulse spiked. "What kind?" "Something that could destroy Trenholm," she said. The room fell silent. Then Ethan's phone buzzed. "Forensics team. Recovered an audio file from the broken phone. Sending now." A notification appeared. Audio file, 0:41 seconds. Shayla plugged the phone into the conference speaker. The file played. Static. Breathing. A woman's voice, weak, whispering, terrified. "They found me. I can't run anymore. If something happens. My girls. Ethan Cole, he'll know what to do. The room froze. Ethan's heart lurched. What did she just? Shayla replayed it. Clearer this time. My girls. Ethan Cole, he'll know what to do. Ethan's breath caught. She knew me, he whispered. Shayla's eyes snapped to him. You didn't know her? No. Then why did she think you'd help her? Ethan felt something heavy sink into his stomach. I don't know. But deep inside, he feared the answer. Feared that his past was connected to hers in ways he had never imagined. Shayla paced. This confirms it. She knew she was being hunted. She knew she didn't have time. And she left her kids in the only hands she hoped would protect them. But why me? Shayla paused. There's more, she said. Look at the last line. She zoomed in on the waveform. A man's voice, deep, sharp, cut through the static. Find the girls. Check the body. Make sure nothing survives. The audio cut abruptly. Ethan's blood went cold. This was murder. This was a cover-up. This was a hunt. And now he had the children. Shayla closed the laptop with a soft click. Ethan, she said quietly, this isn't just a case. He met her eyes. This is war. Ethan had weathered hostile takeovers. He'd survived billion-dollar legal battles. He'd stared down boardrooms full of men who wanted him ruined. But none of that compared to the cold, suffocating silence that filled the room after the audio file ended. A man's voice saying, find the girls. Check the body. Make sure nothing survives. That wasn't desperation. That wasn't panic. That was command. Calculated. Cruel. Confident. Shayla exhaled slowly. Only one man talks like that in this city, she said. Ethan didn't need her to say the name. Marcus Trenholm. CEO of Echelon Industries. Manipulator of politicians. Owner of judges. Destroyer of enemies. And now his voice was connected to a dead mother. And 2 hunted children asleep in Ethan's penthouse. Ethan straightened. We're not waiting. Shayla nodded. Agreed. I'm pulling every file I have on Echelon. But before either of them could move. Bang. A violent hit against the penthouse's armored front door. Ethan's head snapped toward the hallway. Security rushed in. Sir, we have men trying to breach the lobby, claiming to be with Child Protective Services. Ethan's blood ran cold. Shayla scoffed, CPS doesn't show up at 6 a.m. With tactical gear. Sir, the guard continued, they are demanding the children immediately. They have forged documents, convincingly forged. Ethan stepped forward, voice razor sharp. Let me guess, no official CPS vans, no badges that scan. None, sir. Shayla's eyes hardened. Echelon is moving fast. Of course they were. They weren't after justice. They weren't after safety. They were after the girls. And they had just attempted to infiltrate Ethan's building under the guise of a government agency. Ethan turned to the security captain. No one enters this floor. No one touches the children. Anyone claiming authority goes through my legal team first. The captain nodded sharply. Yes, sir. Another bang. This one louder. Shayla's hand drifted instinctively toward the concealed holster beneath her coat. They're testing your defenses, she murmured. They'll fail, Ethan growled. But his mind raced. This wasn't an intimidation tactic. This was extraction. They weren't trying to scare him. They were trying to take the children before he discovered the truth. Before Shayla analyzed the files. Before forensics unlocked the full audio. Before Ethan connected the dots. A dead mother. A hunted family. A corporation with endless resources. And 2 children carrying the final piece of evidence. Yes, Trenholm was desperate. And desperate men were dangerous. Ethan rushed to the medical suite. Amira sat up in the bed, frightened by the noise. Naomi squirmed in the bassinet, startled but still half asleep. Amira's eyes widened. Are they coming? Ethan knelt instantly. No one is getting in here. You're safe. She looked unconvinced. Trauma had taught her that danger always finds a way in. Shayla entered, voice calm but urgent. Ethan, we need to relocate them. Now. Before Trenholm escalates. Ethan shook his head. This is the safest building in the city. For now, Shayla said. But Trenholm's men got past the lobby. Your security handled them, but that means he has eyes inside. Ethan froze. Inside. He looked at the hallway cameras. At the guards posted. At the staff. Shayla continued, and if there's even one mole, it doesn't matter how strong these walls are. Amira shivered, clutching the blanket. Shayla crouched in front of her. Sweetheart, have you ever seen the man Mommy was scared of? Amira nodded slowly. What did he look like? Shayla asked gently. Amira hesitated, then whispered. He smiled, but it wasn't a nice smile. And he said Naomi was special. Mommy grabbed us and ran inside. She said never let him touch us. Ethan's stomach dropped. Shayla inhaled sharply. That confirms it. This wasn't about debt. Or an argument. Or even abuse. Ethan stood. This is about Naomi. Shayla nodded. She's the target. Amira's hands slowly tightened around the blanket. Mommy said. Naomi has something inside her. Something the bad man wanted. Ethan's pulse hammered. Inside her. Amira nodded. Mommy said Naomi was born with something. Something the man wanted to take. Shayla whispered, genetic research, biometric data. Echelon has been trying to break into that industry for years. Ethan's eyes widened. Shayla, what if Naomi is part of something bigger? We find out, Shayla said, but not here. Another boom sounded from far below. Shayla turned, coat flaring like a battle flag. That's it. We're moving the girls to a secondary location. Ethan stepped between the children and the door. We don't run, he said. Shayla approached him slowly. This isn't running. This is survival. She placed a hand on his shoulder. Ethan, the moment Trenholm realizes you have evidence tying him to the mother's death, he's going to send real agents. Not imposters. Ethan didn't flinch. I'm not afraid of Trenholm. Shayla's voice dropped lower. Then be afraid for them. Ethan looked at Amira's fearful eyes. At Naomi's tiny sleeping form. And something inside him cracked. His pride. His stubbornness. His need to feel in control. He whispered. Okay. Shayla nodded toward the hidden elevator. Grab the girls. Ethan scooped Naomi into his arms. Amira slid her trembling hand into his. Shayla pressed the secret panel. The door slid open. Time to disappear, she said. Behind them. Through the penthouse glass. Black SUVs began filling the streets like sharks circling prey. Trenholm wasn't hiding anymore. He was coming. For the girls. For the truth. For war. The hidden elevator doors slid shut with a soft metallic thud, sealing Ethan, Shayla, Amira, and baby Naomi inside a narrow steel chamber barely big enough for 4 people. A low mechanical hum vibrated through the floor as the elevator disengaged from the penthouse level. Ethan held Naomi tight against his chest, her small head tucked beneath his chin. Amira clung to his other arm, tiny fingers squeezing so tightly he could feel her fear in the pressure. Shayla stood facing the elevator doors, gun holstered but hand resting just above it, a silent promise that she was ready for anything. "We're descending into the sublevels," she said. "Trenholm won't know this shaft exists. It was built before the tower changed hands." Ethan kept his voice steady. "What about the trackers?" Shayla smirked slightly. "No towers, no signals. We're ghosts for the next hour." Amira's voice came out small. "Are bad people following us?" Ethan knelt slightly to meet her eyes. "No one's getting to you. I promise." She nodded, but her trembling didn't stop. The elevator continued downward, past the parking floors, the mechanical levels, the security bunkers, into the old infrastructure buried beneath the city. After a full minute of descent, Shayla exhaled. "We're deep enough. No cameras here. No sensors." The elevator stopped with a heavy clank. Shayla pressed her hand to a hidden panel. Another door slid open, revealing a dim corridor lit by old industrial lights that flickered like dying glow sticks. Amira's eyes widened. "Where are we?" Ethan forced a calm tone. "Someplace safe." Shayla corrected him quietly. "Safe enough, for now." They moved quickly through the subterranean passageway. The air was cold, metallic, humming with the distant vibrations of the city above. Pipes snaked along the ceiling. Steam hissed from grates. Every sound echoed in the hollow tunnels. Amira stayed glued to Ethan's side. Naomi stirred gently in his arms, but didn't cry, almost as if she knew that silence was safer. Shayla led the group, her footsteps controlled and soundless. "Ethan," she said quietly, "once we reach the hideout, I need to start digging. Whatever Naomi has, whatever they want. Trenholm won't stop." Ethan's jaw tightened. "He'll have to go through me." "He's counting on that," Shayla said. "He loves predictable enemies." Ethan said nothing. But his eyes held fire. After several minutes of winding tunnels, they reached a large steel door. Shayla entered a sequence on an old keypad, then pulled a lever that groaned as if it hadn't been moved in years. The door opened. Warm light spilled into the corridor. Inside was a surprisingly clean, well-lit underground safe house. Sparkling light strung across the ceiling. Old rugs covering the concrete floor. A sofa and a makeshift kitchen. Beds lined against the far wall. A water purifier humming in the corner. A sanctuary built in a place where no one would think to look. Amira stepped inside slowly, eyes wide with awe. "This is our new home." Shayla gave her a gentle smile. "For now, yes." Amira looked around, relieved but overwhelmed. Ethan gently placed Naomi into a portable bassinet. He had barely pulled away when Amira wrapped her arms around his waist in a tight hug. He froze. Then softened. He rested a hand on her back. "You're safe here," he murmured. She whispered into his coat. "Please don't leave us alone." "I won't," Ethan said. "I'm not going anywhere." Shayla began scanning the room with a handheld jammer. "Just in case," she muttered. "Trenholm's men are good at finding things they shouldn't." Ethan exhaled slowly. "We need answers, Shayla." "Oh, we'll get them," she said. "But first, food, warmth, sleep. These kids are running on desperation." Amira settled beside Naomi's bassinet, brushing the baby's cheek gently. Ethan watched her, so small, so protective, so impossibly strong. And something inside him hardened with resolve. No matter what came, this child would not face it alone. No child should. Shayla returned with a tablet, her eyebrows drawn together. "Ethan." Trenholm made a move. Ethan straightened instantly. What kind of move? Shayla slid the tablet across the table. A live news broadcast played. Breaking, authorities claim Ethan Cole abducted 2 minors in an alleged cover-up involving the death of a woman identified as their mother. Then another headline. Warrant issued for Ethan Cole, suspected kidnapping investigation underway. And then, the final blow. A photo of Ethan holding Amira in the rain. Distorted. Out of context. Weaponized. Amira saw it too. Her lip wobbled. Are they saying you're bad? Ethan knelt in front of her again. They're lying, he said firmly. People with power sometimes lie when they're scared of the truth. Shayla added, and Trenholm is scared. Very scared. Ethan looked up at her sharply. Meaning? Shayla leaned in. Meaning this isn't about a death. It isn't about the apartment. It isn't even about the girls. She pointed at Naomi. It's about her. Ethan looked at the sleeping infant. Shayla continued, voice low. Whatever Naomi has, Trenholm wants it. Badly. And he's willing to burn the entire city to get it. Ethan's entire body stiffened with instinct. Protection. Rage. Defiance. He whispered, not to Shayla, not to the room, but to himself. He'll never touch her. Shayla nodded. Then we fight smart. And we fight first. Ethan stood. Tell me what we need. Shayla smiled grimly. A plan. Allies. Evidence. And time. She glanced at the sealed door. We may only get 2 of those. Ethan walked to the bassinet, brushing Naomi's tiny hand with his thumb. He made a silent vow. Trenholm might own half the city. He might control judges, police, and news stations. He might be a monster with infinite reach. But Ethan had one thing Trenholm didn't. Something worth protecting. And he would not lose this fight. Not again. Not this time. Not ever. The safe house air was warmer now, filled with the soft hum of generators and the faint rattle of pipes behind the walls. Amira sat quietly at the small table, nibbling crackers Shayla had found in the emergency supply bins. Naomi slept bundled in a heated bassinet. Ethan stood by the far wall, staring at the updated news broadcast flashing on Shayla's tablet. Public split. Is Ethan Cole a hero or a kidnapper? Trenholm demands immediate investigation. 2 missing minors. Citywide alert issued. Ethan clenched his fists. This is ridiculous, he muttered. I saved them. Trenholm doesn't care about the truth, Shayla said. He cares about control. Then, suddenly, a soft buzz echoed from the far corner. Shayla turned sharply. The hidden safe house comms panel, a dusty, outdated intercom built into the concrete, was blinking red. Someone was calling in. Ethan stepped closer. No one knows this line exists. Shayla held up a hand. Let me handle it. She pressed the receiver button. This is Monroe, she said carefully. Identify yourself. Static crackled, then a warm voice filled the speaker. Shayla, it's Detective Rosa Navarro. Shayla exhaled in surprise. Rosa? What the hell, how did you find this channel? I didn't, Rosa said. I found you. Or rather, your digital footprints when you wiped the surveillance footage of the Cole Tower exit last night. Shayla pinched the bridge of her nose. Told you I should have double-scrambled it. Ethan stepped forward. Detective Navarro, are you here to help or to arrest me? A short laugh came through the intercom, rough, dry, tired. If I wanted to arrest you, Ethan, I wouldn't be calling from an untraceable burned line in my car. Shayla raised an eyebrow. You're not aligned with Trenholm. Are you kidding? Rosa replied. Trenholm's been a cancer in this city for years. And now he's forcing the department to pin a kidnapping case on you. I don't play puppet for billionaires. Ethan exchanged a glance with Shayla. Rosa continued. I saw the footage from the alley. I saw the medical reports. That little girl was half frozen, the baby severely dehydrated. Anyone claiming you abducted them is out of their mind. Amira looked up at the intercom timidly. Miss, are you a good police? There was a long, heavy pause. Rosa's voice softened. I try to be, sweetheart. I really do. Ethan made a decision. Rosa, he said, we need help. Real help. Someone who can dig where we can't. Rosa exhaled. That's why I'm calling. I did some digging on my end. The mother, her name was Lena Okafor. Ethan froze. Shayla leaned forward. Okafor, that name is familiar. I thought so too, Rosa said. So I dug deeper. She wasn't just a struggling single mom. She was a lab technician. Ethan's stomach dropped. In what field? Shayla asked. Rosa sighed. Genetic research. Ethan closed his eyes, dread washing over him. And guess where she worked, Rosa added. Echelon Industries, Ethan whispered. Bingo. Shayla cursed under her breath. Rosa continued, her voice growing darker. 3 months ago, Lena filed an internal ethics complaint. Alleging unauthorized human testing. Biosample theft. Data manipulation. Amira's breath hitched. She told me her boss was a bad man, she whispered. Ethan's jaw tightened. Rosa, he said, why would they want Naomi? Rosa hesitated. When she spoke again, her voice was grim. Lena didn't just witness illegal experiments. She participated in one, unwillingly. Her pregnancy overlapped with the research timeline. If Naomi was exposed to something during development, then she could be carrying unregistered genetic material, Shayla finished. Material that could expose everything. Rosa lowered her voice further. And Ethan, the hospital records disappeared. Gone. Erased. I've never seen a wipe that clean. Shayla's face hardened. Trenholm. Exactly, Rosa said. Lena must have taken something from the lab, evidence, samples, something dangerous. Something worth killing for. Amira stared down at her little hands. Mommy said Naomi has to stay safe, she whispered. Because the bad man wanted to take her. Ethan felt a surge of fierce protectiveness. Shayla spoke next, more urgent. Rosa, are you exposed? If Trenholm suspects you. He already does, Rosa said. He sent agents to question me this morning. I told them nothing. But the second they left, I packed my gear and drove somewhere quiet. Ethan stepped closer to the intercom. Where are you now? A safe distance. I can meet you. Shayla cut in. No meeting yet. If they're tracking you. I ditched every device I own, Rosa said. And I'm running on burner tech. I'm clean. Shayla exchanged a glance with Ethan. Rosa added. I don't know why Lena trusted you, Ethan. But I'm starting to understand. Ethan swallowed. Detective, will you help us bring Charles Trenholm down? Rosa responded without hesitation. I didn't risk my badge, my career, and my neck to play neutral. I'm in this fight with you. Shayla's shoulders relaxed just slightly. Amira whispered. Thank you. Miss Rosa. Rosa's tone softened again. You're safe for now, sweetheart. And I'll help keep it that way. Ethan exhaled deeply. For the first time since the stormy alley, he didn't feel outnumbered. He had Shayla. He had Rosa. He had 2 innocent children who needed him. And now, he had someone inside the system. Someone Trenholm didn't know was working against him. Someone who could tip the balance. Rosa finished with one last warning. Ethan, whatever you do, don't let Naomi out of your sight. Not for a second. The line clicked off. Ethan looked at the children. At Shayla. At the fortified hideout walls. And he whispered. Let's end this. The safe house felt smaller than before, its warm lights now flickering with tension rather than comfort. The air vibrated with the weight of new information. Lena Okafor. Genetic research. Illegal experiments. Naomi as a target. There was no longer any question about whether this was a misunderstanding. This was a manhunt. And it went all the way to the top. Ethan stood at the head of the small table in the safe house, Shayla to his right, Amira sitting quietly to his left, and baby Naomi sleeping only inches away. The fragile piece was held together by whispered breaths and the low hum of emergency lighting. Shayla laid out files she had been collecting. Some were digital. Some printed. Some handwritten. Others, more troubling, were documents she'd borrowed from old contacts she probably shouldn't have kept. Let's start with what Rosa gave us, Shayla began, tapping a folder stamped in faded red ink. Echelon Protocol Archive, restricted. Ethan crossed his arms. Hit me. Shayla opened the folder. Inside were 3 documents. 1. Lena's ethics complaint. 2. Research timeline. 3. Echelon internal memo. She started with the complaint. Unauthorized usage of fetal genetic samples. Unreported tests performed after hours. Corporate pressure to alter results. Fear for safety. Unpredictable outcomes. Ethan felt his pulse pick up speed. Naomi, he whispered. Shayla nodded grimly. Naomi. She flipped to the research timeline. Lena had logged 11 instances where a specific biosample was taken, tested, or altered without her consent. Each incident lined up with her pregnancy dates. Ethan's breath caught. All aligned to the 2nd trimester, Shayla said. That's when fetal development hits certain neurological benchmarks. Benchmarks for what? Ethan asked. Shayla took a long, slow breath. For enhancement. Ethan stared at her. Come again. Shayla tapped the memo. This one was internal. Coded. Full of jargon. But 2 sentences stood out. Project Chrysalis progressing. Subject 0 confirmed in utero. Subject 0. Amira's quiet voice cut through the air. What's Subject 0? Ethan knelt beside her. It's nothing you need to worry about, he said softly. But Shayla's face told the truth. It was everything to worry about. Shayla slid another set of documents forward, these ones darker. Less official. More dangerous. These are off-the-record statements, she said. Rumors, leaks, anonymous tips. I was never able to verify any of them, until now. Ethan frowned. Go on. Shayla exhaled. For years, Echelon has been trying to engineer neurological enhancements, ways to increase brain development before birth. Faster processing. Higher adaptability. Memory retention. Ethan's face hardened. That's impossible. It is, Shayla agreed. Medically. Ethically. Logically. Then she tapped Naomi's bassinet. But if Lena was forced to be part of a trial, if Naomi was accidentally exposed to something they were developing, she shook her head. We don't know what she is yet. That's what scares them. And they want her back, Ethan said slowly. Shayla nodded. Or silenced. Or dissected. Or erased. Amira whimpered. Ethan reached for her hand immediately, squeezing gently. He forced his voice calm. Nothing is happening to either of you. But the conspiracy went deeper. Shayla pulled up a digital blueprint. A map of the city. Specifically, underground research facilities belonging to Echelon. Ethan's face twisted. You're telling me those rumors were true? Shayla zoomed in on a cluster of dots. They've been running blacksite labs beneath the industrial district for years. Some tied to the government. Some to private donors. Some off the books entirely. And Lena worked at one of these? No, Shayla replied. She worked at the legal, public-facing building. But the samples, the tests, the memos, all originated from below it. Ethan gritted his teeth. So she discovered their hidden labs. And once she knew, Shayla said, she tried to run. Rosa's voice echoed in his memory. My girls. Ethan Cole, he'll know what to do. Why him? Shayla answered without him asking. Ethan, your name wasn't random. Lena picked you on purpose. Ethan froze. What are you talking about? Shayla pulled up a final image. A photo. Taken years ago. Ethan stared. It was him, standing beside a younger man. A familiar man. Lena's older brother. Ethan's eyes widened. He whispered, Daniel Okafor. Shayla nodded. You worked with him during the charity initiative after the storm. Ethan sank into a chair. Daniel. The young engineer who'd helped Ethan rebuild a devastated neighborhood. A good man. A bright man. Killed in an accidental fire 6 months after leaving Echelon. Ethan had always suspected it wasn't an accident. Shayla placed a gentle hand on his shoulder. Daniel must have told Lena that if anything ever happened, you were the only man who hated Trenholm enough, and had the power, to fight him. Ethan closed his eyes. A heavy breath escaped him. He trusted me, he murmured. And I didn't even know. Shayla nodded softly. You know now. And you're doing something. That's more than most people ever do. Amira tugged on Ethan's sleeve. He knelt beside her again. She whispered. Mommy said the bad man would keep looking. She said he would never stop. Ethan pulled her into an embrace. He will stop, Ethan said. Because I'm going to make him. The safe house lights flickered. Shayla grabbed her gun on instinct. What was that? Ethan asked. Shayla checked the generator panel. Power wasn't hit, she said. This was external. Another flicker. This one stronger. Naomi stirred and whimpered softly. Amira froze in Ethan's arms. Shayla stepped toward the door, hand hovering over her weapon. Ethan, she whispered. Ethan rose slowly. What? Shayla pointed to the corner ceiling vent. A faint red light blinked inside it. A light that wasn't part of the safe house wiring. Ethan's chest tightened. No. Impossible. This location was offline. Invisible. Untraceable. Except. Shayla's voice came out low and terrified. They found us. Ethan grabbed both children instantly, Naomi in one arm, Amira in the other. Shayla backed away from the vent. The red light blinked again. A signal. A tracker. A camera. Shayla spoke the words Ethan didn't want to hear. Trenholm's men are here. Amira screamed. Naomi cried. Shayla cocked her gun. Ethan whispered. Then it's time to fight back. The blinking red light inside the ceiling vent pulsed like a heartbeat. Slow. Methodical. Predatory. Shayla moved first. She grabbed her tactical bag, shoved it into Ethan's chest, and whispered sharply, take the kids. Back entrance tunnel. Now. Ethan didn't argue. He lifted Naomi, now crying from the tension, and grabbed Amira's trembling hand. But before they could move. Bang! A deafening crash shook the safe house. Concrete dust sifted from the ceiling. Something heavy slammed against the far door. Shayla cursed. They're breaching. Ethan clutched the children protectively. Amira's voice cracked. They found us, they found us. It's okay, Ethan whispered, pulling her close. I won't let them take you. Shayla pressed a small device into Ethan's palm. It looked like a black key fob. Take the right tunnel. You'll see a steel hatch. Use this to open it. It leads into the old storm drainage system. Ethan nodded. What about you? Shayla flashed a fierce smile. I'll slow them down. Another boom rattled the walls, louder this time, followed by muffled voices. Trenholm's men. Close. Too close. Ethan hesitated only for a second, but that second felt like eternity. Go. Shayla shouted. I'll catch up. He turned. Held Amira's hand tighter. Cradled Naomi against his chest. And ran. They pushed through the narrow back tunnel, walls wet, lights flickering, the echoes of intruders chasing them like ghosts. Amira stumbled once, sobbing quietly. Ethan scooped her up with his free arm, holding both girls against him as he sprinted. His heart pounded. His lungs burned. But stopping wasn't an option. Not tonight. Not ever. Behind them, muffled gunfire sounded. Shayla. Fighting alone. Buying them time with her courage, and her life. Please be okay, Ethan whispered. He reached the steel hatch. Pulled out the device. Pressed the button. The hatch slid open with a groan that echoed down the tunnel. Cold night air rushed in. Ethan stepped into the storm drainage tunnel, wide, dark, vast, smelling of mildew and old rain. He ran again. Faster. Harder. The girls clung to him, their tiny fingers curled into his shirt, their trust anchoring him with terrifying force. He wasn't just protecting them. He was promising himself something. Never again would a child face fear alone. Never again would innocence be hunted. Not on his watch. Not in his world. He reached the far end of the tunnel. A rusty ladder climbed upward to a maintenance exit. Hold tight, he whispered, shifting Amira onto his back as he kept Naomi in front. Amira wrapped her arms around his neck. I'm scared. I know, Ethan said softly. But you're brave. He climbed. Every rung creaked under his weight. Every step felt like a battle. At the top, he shoved the grate open. Moonlight flooded in, cold and bright. When he pulled himself out, he emerged into an abandoned industrial yard on the edge of the city. Safe. For now. He lowered the girls gently onto a patch of grass. Naomi whimpered. Amira sobbed quietly. Ethan pressed a hand to their backs. We're okay, he whispered, breathless. We're okay. But deep down, he knew they weren't safe until Trenholm was gone. Forever. 20 minutes later, headlights cut through the darkness. Ethan tensed, ready to run again. But then the familiar voice echoed across the yard. Cole. Put the gun down before you shoot someone friendly. Rosa Navarro stepped out of an unmarked SUV, hair wild, badge clipped to her belt, gun holstered but ready. Ethan exhaled. Relief hit him like a brick. Rosa. Get in, Rosa said urgently. Shayla called me before the line cut. She told me where you'd surface. We don't have much time. Ethan lifted the girls inside. Rosa floored the engine, tires kicking up gravel. As they sped off, she threw a glance at Ethan. "You okay?" "No," Ethan whispered. "But they are. That's what matters." Rosa nodded. "Good. Then let's get them somewhere Trenholm can't touch." They drove until the city lights faded behind them. Miles passed in silence. Naomi slept against Ethan's chest. Amira curled against his side, finally breathing without shaking. Rosa drove like a woman with a purpose. Finally, she spoke. "You know this ends tonight, right?" "Yes," Ethan said quietly. "Either you bury Trenholm," she murmured, "or he buries you, and the kids." Ethan looked down at the girls. "I'm not losing them." Rosa glanced at him. "If you want to win, you need proof. Something undeniable. Something the media, the police, the courts can't ignore." Ethan nodded. "Lena left something behind," he whispered. "I know she did." Rosa smirked. "You're right." Ethan's eyes widened. "What?" Rosa slowed the car as they reached an old rural farmhouse, quiet, isolated, safe. She parked and turned to him. "Lena emailed me 3 months ago. Said she was scared. Said someone was following her. She said if anything happened, that I should trust you." Ethan's breath caught. "You never told me." "I couldn't," Rosa said softly. "Not until I knew you were really on their side." She opened her glove compartment and pulled out a tiny silver USB drive. Labeled. "For Ethan Cole." Ethan stared at it, heart thudding. Inside the drive could be everything. Project Chrysalis files. Video evidence. DNA reports. Confessions. Research logs. Proof of murder. Proof of Naomi's alteration. Proof of Trenholm's crimes. Everything needed to destroy him. "Ethan," Rosa said, voice steady, "this is the key. Once this gets out, Trenholm is finished." Ethan closed his fingers around the USB. It felt heavy. Powerful. Cleansing. Like justice in physical form. He looked at the 2 sleeping girls. Then at Rosa. Then at the night sky. He whispered. "This ends tomorrow." Rosa helped him bring the children inside the farmhouse. The warmth, the quiet, the stillness, it all felt like the healing they desperately needed. Amira curled up on a small sofa, finally drifting into peaceful sleep. Naomi rested in a cradle Rosa found in the attic. Ethan stood in the doorway, watching them. And in that quiet moment, for the first time since the stormy alley, he allowed himself to breathe. He knelt beside them gently. Brushed the curls from Amira's forehead. Touched Naomi's tiny hand. And he whispered his final promise. "You're my family now. And I'll spend the rest of my life protecting you. I won't let the world break you. Not like it tried to break me. Not while I'm alive. Not ever." Outside, dawn began to rise. Soft, gentle, full of hope. A new day. A new beginning. A new family. Ethan Cole. A man who once believed he needed no one. Now understood his purpose. And he would fight for it. For them. For their future. For Lena's justice. For the truth. No matter what it cost.